Time to upgrade your adventure with an RV from Motorsportsland. Don't put off making exciting memories and exploring the many outdoor hideaways right here in Utah. Come in today and see how Motorsportsland can help you get away, or visit motorsportsland.com.
You're not really ready until you're safe. Summer safely and drive calm.
Inside Sources. Welcome back, everyone, to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. I am Boyd Matheson, and we're going to shift our attention just a little bit to a letter that was sent from the Utah delegation. As I said before the break, this was not a love letter of any way, shape, or form sent to the Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland. And really pleased to be joined now by our good friend and colleague from the Deseret News, Amy Joy O'Donoghue. And Amy, thanks for chiming in on a Friday for us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You have covered public lands and lands issues in the state of Utah for a while. You understand the ins and outs of federal responsibility, state issues, local people that are actually impacted by all of the tug and pull of the politics of it all. So this particular letter that was sent to the Interior Secretary from the Utah delegation, what was the real gist or the real focus of this letter?
Well, the delegation is obviously upset with the Interior Department because of the amount of money that was not awarded to the state of Utah. Utah received just $7.3 million, and none of that went to our national parks or monuments. It was mostly directed on BLM land for projects that they have.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting thing you noted in your reporting, and you can read Amy Joy's piece on Deseret.com, that the state of Virginia received $250 million, even though less than 10% of that state is federal land, where Utah, as you mentioned, Amy Joy, that only received $7.3 million, even though 67% of the state is public land. What's going on with these calculations, and what's really at play here?
Well, that's a mystery, and I think that's the question that the delegation has in this regard. And it's interesting to note that, Utah is like fifth in oil production nationwide and fourth in natural gas production. And if you do a quick search, Virginia doesn't even rank in the top 10 for oil production. So that's a concern of the delegation. This money comes from oil and gas revenue, and it's supposed to be used for deferred maintenance projects at national parks and monuments. And we've got a lot of needs out there. We have more than $225 million in unmet needs at our parks.
Wow, and that's that's the one thing that I think everybody can agree on. We were talking about this on Earth Day yesterday, that everybody can agree that, hey, we do need to make sure we're maintaining our parks and making sure we're being wise stewards of the land. Tell us a little more about that backlog. $225 million in backlog maintenance, things that need to be done in our parks.
Yeah, in Utah parks and national monuments, and so this includes maintenance of trails, improving trails, bathroom facilities, visitor centers, building bridges, just anything that can be done to improve the visitor experience at these parks. And, our parks are loved to death.
Right.
Zion National Park received 4.5 million visitors in 2019 alone.
Wow. And I was one of those just 2 weekends ago, and we thoroughly enjoyed all of that. And it's one of those things that we often don't really think through, all the ramifications of keeping the trails and making sure the outhouses, the facilities are there and so on. And it's also interesting to me, too, that we have people, not just Utahns, using these national parks. We got people from all around the world coming to enjoy these.
Well, what more can you say about Zion? It's just absolutely stunning there. So it attracts, even during COVID, it brought in 3.5 million visitors. And so it behooves the Department of Interior and others to pay attention to these parks and make these improvements so these visitors can really enjoy themselves.
Yeah. So as you look forward, and again, you have been chronicling the rough and tumble of the politics of all of this, which sadly prevents us from really doing the best thing to be the best stewards of the land, or to protect it, or to create the right kind of balance and stewardship for our counties and rural communities as well in terms of their lives and livelihoods. What's on the horizon in this space? What do you see coming here? What are you watching for coming down the pike?
Well, obviously, we're waiting for the Biden administration to make a decision regarding the boundaries at Bears Ears and Grand Staircase. There's a push to restore those boundaries to their original size, and after the Trump administration acted to reduce them. But I think it was Senator Lee who said recently, despite how beautiful these lands are, making them a monument doesn't make them prettier. So if you're going to make them a monument or reduce, increase their size, make sure that there's a just allocation of resources for that.
Yeah, and I know on some of these lands as well, this also gets into something we're already worried about this year, and that is the wildfires. Right,
and so if you can have better on-the-ground management, of course, that will reduce the risk of wildfires. And again, it goes back to making sure that these great lands of ours are protected adequately.
Yeah, absolutely.
With resources on the ground.
Yeah, the resources, and that's dollars and cents and bodies to do the work. And I know many of these lands and these parks have been backlogged for some of them for years now in terms of some of that maintenance work that's going on. Do you see any cracks or any possibilities for improvements there?
Well, I think that was the hope with the passage of this law, that would direct revenue to meet these needs. But again, somehow Utah was shortchanged in this regard, and the delegation is asking why. And there wasn't really any explanation when they made the announcement of the $1.6 billion in funding about what decisions were being made to allocate what to who.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no justification, no explanation as to the methodology. And so I think they rightfully want some answers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we will continue to watch that. And again, it's always one of those things that sends a shiver up my spine, is the behind closed doors and then just an announcement of this is what we're doing without that transparency or that ability to have any accountability. Amy Joy O'Donoghue, we always appreciate your reporting, especially when it comes to our lands and some of those critical issues here to the state of Utah. Thanks for joining us on a Friday.
Well, thank you very much, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Amy Joy O'Donoghue. She's a great writer for the Deseret News. You can read her article at Deseret.com. And again, the Utah congressional delegation clearly frustrated with this just inexplicable allocation of funds. I just want to go back and repeat, again, this is part of Amy's reporting and a part of the letter from the delegation to the Interior Secretary, that Virginia is getting nearly $250 million of this money that is for public lands. And public lands in Virginia make up less than 10% of the state. Less than 10% of the state is federal land. Utah, on the other hand, is only getting $7.3 million, and 67% of the state of Utah is public lands. And so the delegation is rightly asking the question, what's the calculation? Also, as Amy Joy reported and shared with us on air here, that a lot of this is oil and gas, the revenue that this is taken from. And, Utah's in the top 5 producers of those. Virginia's not even in the top 10 in terms of producing, and yet they're getting such an incredible amount of money. It really begs the question of how did this happen? How are these decisions made? And more importantly, how does it get corrected? Because, again, the wonderful parks, the national parks of the state of Utah, are enjoyed not just by Utahns, but people from around the country and across the planet come here for those, and all of that maintenance is so vitally important. Appreciate Amy Joy O'Donoghue joining us to break that down for us today. All right, we're going to step aside for top of the hour news. When we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit of immigration. Vice President Harris goes to the Northern Triangle of South America looking for answers. We'll see what she came up with coming up next. Stay with us. Hour number 2 coming up on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio.
I'm Dave Cawley, host of the podcast Cold. Our brand new second season focuses on the 1985 disappearance of a woman named Joyce Yost. Hear her voice for the first time. That's Cold Season 2, exclusively on Amazon Music.